Hey guys, Dr. Tultras here. Just wanted to pop by to thank you for tuning in and remind you all to hit that subscribe button and follow me on my Twitter to support my journey as a broadcast analyst. Without further ado, let's get back into it, and I hope you all enjoy the podcast.
Well, things can change quickly, and you always gotta be ready to adapt, no matter like what you think going into a tournament. So
Okay.
I hope that answers
Yeah.
the question a
Uh,
little bit at least.
I mean, it does make a lot of sense, right? The reduction in aura items means that you're now focusing on other items. A lot of them have to do with creating early game tempo and those outright burst items that you have. Um, but overall, so from what I've seen of Avulus, right, they kind of there are different, like in Dota, of course, we don't really mention these as such, right? But different kind of, I would say, formations, right? So like for example, the four protect one strategy is a bit of a formation in of itself, right? Um, what I've seen of Avulus is you have a 3-1-1, right? When it's time to rotate, you're usually utilizing your, or not utilizing it, there can be more than three, but you make sure that there's at least three heroes that are ready for that pickoff or for that fight, unless there's a clear opportunity, right? So you're ready for that team fight. um do you think that that's going to be the natural transition as well, considering the map's expanded counter initiation is also now a larger part of the game? So we're going to go towards, I would say, safer pickoffs where you're pooling more resources into those pickoffs.
Hmm. I'm when it comes to like making pickoff plays and the like number of resources you allocate to these types of plays, I think generally speaking, the longer you go into a game, the more resources you will be okay allocating to like a move, so to say. Like if you're at minute 5 or 6, you like say for some reason at minute 5.5, instead of going for the 6 minute rune, you want to smoke to the enemy carry to kill him with your mid
Yeah,
laner. You're probably not going to use 3 heroes in that smoke. You're probably
yeah,
just gonna use 2 heroes. Like the +4 will smoke the mid and they'll run there. Maybe the +5 will take the mid lane or something during this time. So that would be a 2 hero smoke, because like not having a hero on a lane at that stage is just criminal, because it's so early in the game.
yeah,
Like nobody has any gold right now, so to lose 1 or 2 waves at this stage is it's just too important, even if you're gonna get kills. And it's also like very obvious, if no one's showing on a
yeah,
lane like this early in the game, like you can't afford to lose these resources. So if they are losing these resources by not being there, the enemy can be very careful. They can afford to be very careful in the side lanes while nobody is showing in the mid lane during this time. So like a lot of these things like play into it. But if you talk like way later into the game, like say we're
yeah.
60 minutes into the game, uh, everyone has 20k net worth. You don't have to go for some lane right now. It's way more important that you show literally zero information for the enemy.
Yeah.
And if you do show information to the enemy, you're doing it intentionally to make them feel safe. So maybe 1 hero will show at the most, and then 4 heroes will be in a smoke on the other side of the map, or maybe going around the guy who's showing, or something along those lines. The smokes will be way bigger because or the most important part of it is just that the fight is the important thing. You need to win the fight, because if you lose it, the game ends. And if you win it, the game ends, but you win it. So and between this 5 minute moment and the 60 minute moment, there's like everything in between, and it's always going to depend on the situation whether you want like a bigger smoke or a smaller smoke. But generally speaking, the later into the game we are, the more people will be in the smoke, I would say.
Okay.
Um,
Irrespective of, uh, is that irrespective of the potency of the ganking hero, simply because of uh how unsafe a possible counter initiation can be? Like, for example, like a Queen of Pain that's very clearly ahead can outright burst anyone, right? But in this meta, does that Queen of Pain or XYZ hero, right, that has that insane burst potential on that mid lane, are do they need to be more careful because counter initiation is easier, or not? I wouldn't say easier, is a lot more practical.
it's so extremely game dependent still, like depending on what heroes are in the game. Like, um, like if you think that the enemy will be able to just TP in heroes and stop your move, you will try to just allocate more
Yeah.
resources to the move, like to make it work. So for example, say you're 10 minutes to the game, you get a good rune on your Queen of Pain, and you want to go and gank the enemy carry. Um, then yeah, you're gonna do the smoke uh, with a support will come and smoke the mid laner, and they will try to run to the enemy carry. But you see on the enemy heroes that they have great potential to just TP in and destroy you if you go too far. So how do you make this work, right? Either you need to play with some information and you need to see like you need to understand like that something happened in the game that lets you do this move. Maybe the enemy mid used their TP poorly, so you know they don't have a TP, and then you don't have to do anything special. But if the enemy is completely ready, then it's like you need to coordinate everything so that you can still outnumber the enemy, for example. So when you know it's like, okay, it's 10 seconds till the smoke lands. All right, let's send a carry through the gate right now, and let's TP the other support to the offlane right now, so that yeah, the move lands with 3 people, but after 5 seconds after this lands, then we're 5. So even if the enemy reacts, we'll still win the fight. Like something like this is like very very complicated to explain without like a game in front of us perhaps,
Yeah.
but and it's also like so game dependent. It's hard to like paint a good scenario that makes sense.
Okay, and as far as these, all these calculated moves, what is the risk reward ratio of all of this currently, right? Suppose you're ahead, right, in how big the map is currently, how the meta is currently. Suppose you're ahead, and your carries are matched evenly, right? In the sense that the sort of carries they are kind of matched evenly. Say a Dragon Knight versus a Morphling. The Morphling's behind. What is the risk reward ratio looking at right now? In terms of counter potential, in terms of a comeback potential, that do you go for that risky play? Is it worth it, or will teams more hold back?
It's a little bit. I'm not sure I completely understand the question. Like when it comes, I had a saying that my team hates right now. That is, if it's late game, like if a game goes to 40 minutes and both teams have initiation, it's 50-50. My team hates it when I say this because it makes it sound like it doesn't matter what we do. It's just either win or we lose, and it's 50-50. That's how they interpret it, but that's not the point. The point is that no matter how good we play, there's like no guarantee that we win, essentially. And it's like I don't think it makes like strategical sense to aim for a late game if you want to win consistently. Like that shouldn't be what you're aiming for in my mind, because there is like if you go into a late game and you're not massively ahead, or you like don't have a massive outdraft, you're just gonna lose sometimes, like no matter what, because late games are just very complicated. It's like okay, both teams are smoking and they're trying to play it's the better vision, and they're gonna try to out team fight the enemy, but it's just so complicated, and there are never any guarantees that you will win these fights. While I think it's way more simple to gain a strategical edge, like in the first 30 minutes, and most of the like dominant teams we have seen throughout the years have been teams that are able to abuse early game advantages.
Okay, and
Um,
what about the other way around, right? Because I'm seeing teams shift away from that. Your high ground is kind of your safe space, right?
mhm.
And if you particularly have a good high ground defense, then it's how the saying goes: a good defense is the best offense, right? So, but I'm seeing teams stick less to their high ground even when they're behind. They're still going for that risky play. So for
Yeah,
them, is that worth it a lot more than sticking to your high ground and trying for a defensive maneuver?
it's always depends on the game and the timings that you think you will have. Um, I remember watching some game at TI, Liquid versus Gladiators, or no, it was at Riyadh actually when Gladiators beat Liquid. I remember watching some game there, and I was disappointed that Liquid did not try to stop the the first big move from Gladiators. Because Gladiators did what they usually do. They did this like big 5-man move through the gate at minute like 10 or something to attack the enemy safe lane. So they attacked the enemy carry, they killed him, they took the tower, and I was a bit disappointed in Liquid that they didn't try to put up a defense because I thought that was the best opportunity they had to turn that game around to their advantage. And then I watched the rest of that game, and I just, yeah, I still, after watching all the other moments in that game, I still thought that the best chance they had to win that game was to try and stop Gladiators at that moment at minute 10 at a tier 1, you know? And that's pretty far from the high ground, right? And
Yep.
that's the risk I thought that Liquid should have taken in that game. I thought they should have like put all the eggs into the basket, into that basket, like a tier 1 defense at minute 10, not a high ground defense at minute 30 with a 10 or 15k deficit. Um, and that's like the job of the defending team is to identify this best moment to take like a big risk. You need to identify that moment when you have the best risk to reward ratio, right? That's what it's about as the like defending team. You're trying to find the best moment to turn things around. And if you miss it, then yeah, you're just more likely to lose, right? Um, so yeah, I think that's my way to
Do, do you
the way I think about it.
do you think it's harder now to find that best moment because there's so much utility going around in the game, right? Uh, Even on the supports, right? Like in the mid to late game, even the supports have a lot of utility items in the current meta. So, is it harder to find that best moment?
I'm not sure if I would say it's harder. It's just a very complicated thing because you're usually going to fail.
Yeah, I mean the odds are
Um,
against you.
and when you're usually going to fail, you're mostly going to get like negative feedback when you're like trying to improve at it. Like you went for something you thought was the best move, and you got nothing out of it. Maybe you just died with like 2 heroes. Maybe you got team wiped. Maybe you just went somewhere with a smoke, placed a ward. Absolutely nothing happened, and the enemy team was taking Roche in the meantime. You know, there's like so many ways for it to go wrong, and when it goes wrong, you need to like try to not make yourself feel bad about it. You need to just look at the situation objectively and like, yeah, did we do a good thing? Was there a chance for us to turn the game here? And as long as there was a chance, you need to like be satisfied and like, yeah, okay, this was a good attempt to recover the game. But yeah, it's super complicated. It's difficult to get better at it because you fail so much while trying to do it. So there's like so little positive reinforcement, like positive feedback from this time we did it and we turned the game around because it's just so little of that. It's just a very like it's just a very difficult thing. Yeah.
Okay, and like, I mean, of course, it's in my opinion, it has become a lot more complicated than it was, but that's just the nature of how, in my opinion, Dota has evolved over the years. Complication upon complication, right? I remember like the last patch that came out, the patch that introduced the innates and the facets kind of
Mm,
overwhelmed everyone. But enough about the
right.
meta. Let's talk about future events now. Avulus, uh, they formed earlier this year, and they've had you
In
guys,
June.
yeah, you guys have had a lot of success in such a short amount of time. Is do you think that the way that the meta is shifting, that it's going, because from what I've seen of Avulus, you guys love your aggressive plays. There is quite clearly a lot of trust in each other, right? In the sort of thing that you each individually want to be doing, right? Because you guys each individually do have your own ideas about what kind of plays you want to be making, right? Because you want to play those heroes in particular as well. Do you think the meta is evolving in your favor?
Hmm, 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 hmm. Is it? I'm not. Hmm. Probably not. I think it's hard to completely say. I think um it feels kind of like some of our strongest heroes don't feel as strong as they used to, and I'm not sure like we have really good replacements for some of them. So in a way, I would say no, but at the same time, I don't think that's like we don't view ourselves as a team that's just going to exist for like 1 or 2 patches either.
Yeah.
We think of ourselves as a team that's like ready to face hardship together and work through problems together. Um, so even if like the next patch will be hard for us or this patch will be hard for us, we fully expect to like be able to work through it and still stick around, right? That's like our mentality. Um, so I think that's the best way I can explain it.
And it's always refreshing, for me personally, like just teams sticking together, right? And playing as one. I believe that that was the OG philosophy, right? And that
Mm.
led to them winning many TIs. um and it's personally very heartwarming to see that. Does having someone like Soniko at the helm, and this is something that I do want to touch up. Uh, from the few resources I could find, right? I remember you did this interview in 2021, right, where you mentioned that there's a sort of decentralized version or a democratized version of how you're playing with your team, where
Hmm.
there's no one uh, calling the shots. Rather everyone's kind of bringing their ideas into it
Hmm.
and kind of playing. So is that also, is that the same, or does having someone like Soniko at the helm, who's a veteran of so many years, or has that shifted towards him calling the shots, or the captain?
No, I think that's actually a bit was like a bit of a surprise how little Soneko actually did this in this team. I think, I mean, I got exactly what I wanted in this team. I got like a very free version of Dota, or like I got to play the type of Dota where everyone is free to make calls essentially. Like, um, yeah, everyone's allowed to play their own version of Dota and to like find something that works as like works together. Like it's like it's just a very very free version, like an OG version of Dota in a sense. And I was a little bit surprised that Soneko wasn't more of a dictator. I always imagined that Soneko was a bit more of a dictator, but he's not at all. Actually, he's one of the guys that communicate the least inside of games. I think there are 3 players in the team that talk more inside of games than Soneko does. Um, so yeah, it's just we're all like contributing to the in-game stuff. What Soneko does really contribute is like out-of-game stuff, like strategy and drafting. I think he provides a lot of structure there, and he's like a big like strategical leader for us, which is still like very helpful. Yeah.
Like just like a really good mentor as well, I'm sure. um because I mean, if you've seen uh as many successes as he's had, and what just what you have to go through, I'm sure that that does make someone a very wise player, or a wise person at the helm, right? um
For sure.
does do you think, because Suniko did has played from a time where heroes like this, or this play style was very popularized in Dota, the way that Avulus plays, uh, that it's this kind of playstyle is encouraged, like kind of everyone bringing their own ideas. If you want to play, if you think it's a good Enigma game, or you want to play Dawnbreaker, you go for it. Storming wants his Earth Spirit or his Earth Shaker, he goes for it. Eki feeling like he wants to play that Batrider, he goes for it. So is what you want more prioritized than someone's understanding of what's good? Because often at times it is not the same. Right?
I mean, we're always aiming to like have a good understanding of each other there. Like sometimes I'll get like surprised by some idea early on in the draft where it's like I don't have as much influence um on on the draft perhaps when it's like the first 2 picks, and sometimes I will like very much disagree with an idea, but I just trust that my drafter and the coach knows what they're doing, and then yeah, oftentimes they do. When it comes to like later picks, I think we have a lot more input on the player actually playing the hero. Um, yeah, like if I'm the like the last pick of the game, I will select my hero. My drafter is not just gonna say like, "Yep, you're playing this hero," and that's all. Like, no, I will be the one making the final call for sure in these types of moments, and that goes for like everyone. I think, like in the team, it's not just with me or only with Course. Like if Eki is the last pick of the game, he's also gonna be having the final say for what hero he's playing for sure.
Yeah, and that's an approach that I definitely personally prefer. I know that.
It feels like a more. It feels like a modern version of Dota actually. Like there's more like where everyone is contributing and there's like no one big dictator. Like it just feels like all the teams that had like a big dictator that was like the main shot caller of the game, like none of these teams exist anymore.
Yeah.
Kind of like everyone is expected to contribute when it comes to like ideas inside of the game because I mean to me at least it just makes sense. Like five people playing Dota and finding a good way to cooperate will always beat one player with four people on a leash. It just makes sense to me that like five people with ideas will beat one person with ideas and four followers, kind of. As long as the five people with ideas are still cooperating nicely. Disclaimer. Um, but yeah, this free version, like this freedom focused version of Dota, just resonates very well with me, and I just find it like better. Yeah.
Okay, and given this sort of bond that all of, and I would say honestly respect that you have for each other to the point where everyone's kind of an equal irrespective of the role that they're playing, right? The core is where like everyone gets what they want to a certain degree as much as it allows, right? How do you
Mm.
guys face with, because I generally ask because it's very interesting, right? And it often portrays to me the trajectory of a team, at least in my head, right? So how do you guys deal with the losses along the way or the road bumps?
Um, I mean, these problems are always like it's always a challenge when a big problem arises, a big conflict arises, and whether it's like a Dota related one or like a more like mentality or personality related conflict, it's always a big challenge to solve things. Um, because yeah, like it's just everyone is trying so hard, everyone's like very invested and very emotional about Dota 2. Um, so yeah, it just takes a lot of energy to solve conflicts, but I think this team has already gone through a lot of conflicts. It's not like we're not in our honeymoon period. Like we have been playing for, I know we've only been playing for like 5 months, but regardless of this, we've been through so many problems already. It's like, uh, it's like you have been with your girlfriend for 5 months, but you've had a divorce and you've been cheated on and you've cheated on her as well, and
That's a lot.
you've had 15 children and you've had to send four of them to college and you have to take the other 10 to football practice, and we've gone through all of this in just the course of 5 months. It feels like we've done all of it, all the conflicts. So yeah, um it doesn't really feel like we're not like concerned about that. Oh no, maybe we're gonna get a big fight soon, and we can't solve this one and we're going to disband. I think it's more like, we're expecting there to be 10 more problems in the next month and that we're going to be able to just continue working through them like we have. At least that's my take on it.
Okay, and do you feel that it's made Avulus better, like stronger as a result of dealing with all of that?
Yeah, 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 I do.
Okay. Um, have are you guys close to figuring out, because you guys have been very close in a lot of the series that uh against some of the top tier teams, right? If you look at Dream League now, obviously that was a lot. Um, that was a far time back, in the relatively 5 months that we have been seeing
I'm not that far,
Avilus.
but yeah.
Yeah. So, and those were all 1-1s, right? I was looking at the group
Yeah.
standings. Are you guys closer to figuring out the missing piece of the puzzle? regarding like what, because in my opinion, and this is not just because I'm a huge fan of Fabulous, right? Uh, you guys, it seems like you're not it seems like the skill is all there, right? The individual performances and the team's collective performance is all there, but there might be a few missing pieces. So are you close to figuring out the puzzle?
Um, I mean, I hope so. Um, but honestly, it doesn't feel like we're like close to a breakthrough right now. It's more like a slow grind at the moment. Like when it comes to the team's process, if that makes sense. We have noted like some problems that we have. Like for example, um, we have gone through a lot of boot camps recently in the last few months, right? And we have seen a trend where the first few days when we come back from a boot camp, we kind of lose sight of our gameplay and our like the way we play together. So we tend to like underperform when we come back from boot camps. This is like a trend we have seen now like 3 times in a row or something like this. That was like the start of Dream League because we came from RES, right? Where we beat Parivision 2 series in a row, like 4 games in a row or something like this. And um, then we go back from this boot camp we were on when we played, or well, we played at the tournament RES, right? So we were like still like all on location. And then we go back from there, back home, and we go straight like the day after into Dream League, but we're playing from home. And it feels like we already then lost sight of like our gameplay. We faced Parivision in our first series, and it's not even close because it's not because they changed, really. It's because our gameplay as at Team Avulus was a lot worse. So that's like a trend we could see where yeah, okay, there's something wrong here that we really need to improve on because we really thought that we kind of should have gone through the first group stage of Dream League. That's what we felt like.
And
But
that's
yeah, when it comes to like other breakthroughs, like there's nothing like that it comes to mind that like yeah, okay, this is a problem we're having, that we're this close of like figuring it out and beating these tier 1 teams. It's more like I think it's always very close at the top, actually. Like if you take a game between a top 3 team and like a top 8 team, say it's like it comes down to a match between us and Liquid or us and Falcons or something like this, and they're obviously the favorites. You know, they take a commanding lead at minute 15 and they win the game in 30 minutes. The amount of moments it takes for us to turn that loss into a victory is not many. It's like if 1 or 2 or 3 moments are turned around into our favor, like 3 less mistakes that we do, and that turn from the enemy's favor to our favor, suddenly we're winning that game. Like the margin for winning or losing, even like when it comes to the difference of like the best team in the world and a top 8 team in the world, is very very small. So it just feels like it doesn't take that much. Like we don't have to become that much better to suddenly win a tournament. That's what we feel like, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that does make sense. I mean, you know, uh, like I mentioned, I genuinely do believe that the from what I've seen, the skill is there. Uh, like I don't know how much of a bias is there because I genuinely want to see you guys do really well. Um, how like are you guys preparing for? I would say the increased heat on Avulus for ESL One Bangkok because you have taken teams by surprise, and like I don't sure teams probably did prep right against your matches, but if you're Tundra or if you're OG, then there must have been that element of they being just a little bit laid back. It could have been 1%, it could have been 10%, however much it was. They did end up losing, but teams
Mm.
are going to be a lot more well prepared for you. Um, are you guys factoring that in?
I mean, I think we don't really think of ourselves as like an underdog anymore in that sense.
Okay.
Um, I do still think that there will be teams that are like they will not prepare as, or maybe they will. I think teams' processes are usually like the same, regardless of if they're prepping against Liquid or if they're prepping against Avalus or okay, maybe Liquid is not the best team in the world right now, but like Bet Boom or Tundra or something. I don't know. Regardless if you're prepping against the best team in the world or you're prepping against Avalus, I think the processes are probably the same anyway. Like the prep will look the same. the coach and the drafter will do the same things that they would if it's the best team in the world or if it's Avulus. That's kind of what I think, because that's how we would do. It wouldn't.
Okay.
It doesn't really matter what team we're facing. The prep kind of looks the same anyway. Um, or like the processes at least is the same.
So you
So
prep for the meta and not for the team itself
I
in
mean, no, we do
rudimentary
prep for the
sense.
team. That's not what I mean. It's just that like the processes which we go through, like the way we prepare
Okay.
is still like the same. Like we do look at the teams specifically, but we wouldn't like change the way we go about it just because it's a stronger team necessarily. Like the processes are just still the same, and I think it's like that for most teams. So when it comes, I think it, like more about like the mentality of the players. Perhaps I still think there's a good chance that we'll be like underestimated by some teams, and that they maybe like um that they can still get taken by surprise in a sense. I do think that's the case, but I don't think we will be like completely disrespected and like that teams will pick like troll heroes or anything like this. Not anymore, at least. At least I don't think so.
Yeah, I definitely don't think that there's going to be any room for overtly underestimating you, right? I mean, at least I think that that moment has passed. I think if you have qualified, then more, at least that's what I would hedge it in my mind, kind of like that, where teams will probably be taking every team that has qualified a lot more seriously. So Avulus, who loves to make those, I would say, aggressive maneuvers, right, inside of the game, right, and I would term it as high risk, high reward plays, right, because as we mentioned in the very at the very start of the interview, it kind of play at the edge, right? Um, is that something? And I consider that to be a strength of Avulus. Of course, I don't know how you guys
Mm.
see it, right? Is that going are you guys going to be maximizing on that strategy, maximizing on that particular strength of yours going into it, like kind of like doubling down
Mm.
on what works against some of the bigger
I mean, this
teams?
aggressive type of mindset, I think that's how like this team started out. And back then it was with Mikey on the mid lane, and back then it was like a more in it was intuitive to everybody. Like aggressive aggression was just the intuitive way that everybody on that team played. And yeah, so that's like the background of this aggressive playstyle more or less. It was just intuitive to everyone, and so that became the way we played Dota. With Stormer, it was a bit different because I mean, if anyone thinks about Stormer, they will think of Exort Invoker and a more patient and passive and farm heavy playstyle where you maybe waiting for the enemy to commit a mistake. Um, and he has kind of given us this perspective in the gameplay. He's like he's the counterweight that is like keeping us in reality a little bit in that regard. Um, so I think we're improving in both senses. We're still like trying to improve our aggression and make that our focus, while also like understanding when we need to fall back a little bit, and we're like trying to improve in both directions, if that makes sense. Um, but like stylistically speaking, we're definitely still like an aggressive team. I still think that's like what we are aiming to be. Um, but yeah, we're looking to like not be one dimensional in that sense. Yeah,
Okay. Okay, just keeping your options open and like just maximizing everything that you can.
yeah.
And it's actually surprising how, like, I would not have guessed this, right? A Stormer being that calm voice that's like, okay, guys, think about this, right? Because often at times, I'm seeing Stormers just jumping in, wreaking havoc a lot of the times, right?
Oh yeah, I mean he's been forced to adapt, right? Because we're like Stormer, we're aggressive in this team, so we're gonna make you play Earth Spirit and Storm Spirit or whatever the heck, and you're gonna go in there and yeah, have fun. So there's always been a lot of pressure on Stormer to like be aggressive, but yeah.
Okay, okay, and of course, what is your aim for ESL Bangkok? Like, of course, you guys want to win, right? Um, But what would be a happy, satisfactory result? Keeping in mind, like, of course, the team does not ascend to TI overnight, right? You have to kind
Mm.
of grind your way there, having more and more successes along the way. I would say, and ESL is going to be where all the top dogs show up. So, what would be a happy outcome?
I imagine that for most of the team at least, I think something like a top six finish or along those lines would make people happy. I think maybe more importantly, if we like, as long as we don't get defeated in like a bad way, I think if we like win a playoff series against a team that we think is like perhaps objectively better than us, we'll see that as an immense victory. Say like we win one playoff series against say Falcons or Liquid, I think we would see that as a big victory. Yeah, like as a big success. Even if we like lose immediately after this, we were like, yeah, okay, we showed that we could beat a tier one team at a LAN with a crowd, and then we went out. But okay, we showed some improvement. Something like this. For me personally, as long as I feel like we're stronger going out of this event than going into it, um, not just from the perspective of only our team, but like from the perspective of in relation to the strength of the scene as a whole. Like, say we go from like a top 10 team in the world to a top 8 team in the world. To me, that's a big success. That we show this improvement relative to our competition. Then I will be happy.
Okay,
And
so
if we can do this at every event, then eventually we'll be a top one team in the world, right? So that's like what I'm aiming for personally.
yeah, so that, again, that's
But yeah, that's like our
grinding your way to the
expectations.
top, right? And having that far-sightedness to know what the end goal is, which obviously TI. Um, when do you like? Obviously, this is don't mind me. This might be a horrible question, but given the trajectory and the success that you have had, right? When do you think that Avulus will be TI ready? Considering like, I don't think it's all that far. Like I could be massively mistaken about, but like one win made it to TI, right? Um, even though it is a different region altogether, but like it's similar in the sort of skill set. Like I wouldn't say Avilos is past the top 16 teams, right? I think it's somewhere there.
Hmm. So yeah, when it comes to like being a TI team or a Riyadh team, in a sense, I think we are like already at that level. Like I think we're kind of like a top 12, top 16 team in the world, and if that's what we are, I think we should be making TI, right? So if we can stay at kind of the level where we're at right now in comparison to the competition, then yeah, hopefully we're going to make it. But that's going to depend on a lot of factors, and uh, this there's like what is it, 9 or 8 months or something left until we're gonna talk about qualifying to TI.
Yeah.
So there's so much more work to be done, and not just for us, but like all the other teams around us will also be working very heavily. Like take a team like Tundra, for example, that we beat in order to make it to ESL One Bangkok. That team has a fantastic roster, and I think this qualifier kind of served like a wake up call for them that okay, maybe our play styles are not meshing the way we wanted to. We're gonna have to do some changes in how we play. And I think the fact that they lost these qualifiers should make them way stronger. And I'm expecting as you can see already in Blast, like Tundra is a top team in this tournament. And I'm expecting them to, I'm kind of expecting Tundra to like overtake us in skill for like the next set of qualifiers, if that makes sense. Just because like they have a fantastic roster, and I think all the players on the team are like ready to work through problems as well. Um, so it's going to be a fight. It's going to be a big fight to stay ahead of the teams we're currently ahead of, and to also try to overtake the teams that are currently in front of us. It's going to be a massive fight, and I just hope that we can that we're all up to the task on the team. Pretty much, yeah.
Okay. And speaking about fights, what region in particular do you think is the most has the most random playstyle, or a playstyle that you know a lot of
Ooh.
teams are not used to? because like obviously South America has a very different play style. Asian teams have a very different play style. Um, so what region is going to be the most surprising in the ESL Bangkok?
I've always felt like the SEA play style is a bit unpredictable to me personally. Um, it's just like the most different to me. It just feels strange to play against, and it's been like this for like many years for me. Every time I'm playing against a team from Southeast Asia, I'm just like kind of confused
Like
because
a
the
Bloodseeker
things
running
I usually
around.
do are like it just doesn't really it doesn't work the way I'm used to kind of. So like there's some adjustments to be made, and I would just feel like I just need more games against that region under my belt to like kind of figure out what's going on there, because I do think it's just important to gain experience playing against different top level teams, right? That's kind of what we are as a team are gathering as well. Like this is like the first time for me in a very long time that I actually get to play consistently against tier one teams. So I'm accumulating every tournament that goes on. I'm accumulating very important experience playing against all these different play styles, not just regions, but like even different teams in the same region. They all play very differently, right? So yeah, like even if I think maybe SCA is like the one that's like the strangest to me, I think there are other teams that also have like good or bad matchups against us, and I just wish to accumulate as much experience as possible playing against all these different teams and just improving. Yeah.
Okay, so accumulating experience against the somewhat surprising teams is definitely a good strategy, particularly
Yeah,
if
or
it
like
is a long game.
teams that like I struggle against personally.
Okay, okay, and
Yeah.
to be fair, there are also teams that like European teams do. Like obviously I have seen a bit of that association, you know, when they play against C teams or when they play against South American teams. There is that bit of a struggle. It's just a wow factor. Like, why is there a Bloodseeker in this game, for example? um so Zibe, is there anything that you know, you would like to add? It's, I know you're not new to the big stage. You were back in Han, but now you're going to be entering the big stage of Dota. So, and you're probably going to be accumulating quite a few fans, including myself, along the way. So,
Mhm.
is there anything that you want to be putting out there for them?
I mean, nothing crazy in particular. I'm just always very happy that there are people out there cheering for me, whether that's like new fans or old fans, some of my stream watchers or old friends or anything. I always appreciate every single one of the people that are cheering for me. So um yeah, like perhaps like if any of my fans like are missing my streams or anything, you know, every time I get DM'd on Twitch or Twitter and people like I miss your streams, you know, that still like warms my heart a little bit. So if anyone's watching this and is like missing my streams or anything, you know, feel free to send those DMs, and there's a higher likelihood that my stream will come back on. Um, Other than that, no, nothing much to say. I'm just thankful to all the fans, new or old.
I mean, you heard it, guys. So that was Zibe. Of course, he does find all of your support very heartwarming. So I will include the link to his Twitter and also the link to the Twitter of Team Avulus. Be sure to subscribe and follow them. And well, at this point, we might as well just wish Avulus luck. You know, this rising star in the form of Avulus, or is it going to be more of a dark horse in the ESL One Bangkok? Of course, there's still quite a bit of time, quite a lot of practice that needs to be done. So we'll just leave Zibe to it. Hey guys, Dr. Tultras here. Just wanted to pop by to thank you for tuning in and remind you all to hit that subscribe button and follow me on my Twitter to support my journey as a broadcast analyst.